There you go. You look brilliant, my friend. And so do you, my friend. Why am I doing this lesson today? Because these are the 4 habits of intelligent people. And you might say, what does this have to do with language learning? Well, funny enough, the best language learners use these 4 habits. And I'm going to go over them today with you and also give you some hints on how you can actually enhance your learning or make your learning better, faster, deeper, and more fun by following these 4 habits. Ready? Let's go to the board. So the first one it says here is you have to do active listening because it's about listening. And right now, some of you are going, that's so obvious. And of course it is. Because when you learn a language, I know there's reading, but most of it is done verbally, which is someone speaks, someone listens. And you'll notice here you have to learn to do active listening, right? And active listening is not just being passive. A lot of people think that when they learn languages, they want to speak, not realizing that when they learn their first language, you learned it by listening. Remember, you didn't come out of your mommy saying, Mama, Dada, car, I want some money. Hey, you did it. No, you just listened for like 6 months. And then eventually you said, ma, ma, da, da. And you would repeat. And they would go, yay. And then you would know you did it correctly. So active listening, which is paying attention, participating, not just sitting there looking, but trying to take the information in, right? This is an important part of being an intelligent person, but also an important part of language learning. You will learn more from listening than any other way, okay? You'll also notice it says here to learn, and this I changed because they just said intelligent people listen actively. They participate more, they speak less in conversation, and they listen more. And that's why they can get more information from people. Now, what I say here is not only do you have to do that to get your vocabulary, okay, but we learn syntax, where and when, how grammar is structured, how the words should go together. Accent reduction. How many students have I heard that said, my accent is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I went, just listen. And the joke is this, a lot of the times that they listen, and I say, now make fun of me. And they'll go, make fun of me. They go, okay, man, this is what you sound like. I go, that's perfect English. You don't have to go to some special course. Just use the things between on the sides of your ears, your head. And you hear the sounds properly and perfectly. And if you mimic, you will reproduce those sounds. And that's active listening, not passive, right? Listening to the tone. I want to say intonation, but they listen to the tone, listen to the breaks. And from that active listening, right, we learn language, we learn syntax, how we should say what we should say. We reduce the accent naturally, and we pick up new words, new vocabulary. Because almost every time you hear someone speak, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced student, or a native speaker, someone, if you're speaking to someone of interest, is going to give you new vocabulary that you can learn from. And thus can continue the conversation, because when you say, well, what does that mean? They will talk. More active listening, okay? The next one we're going to do is this. Now, I had the wrong book because Superman has a fortress of solitude. Batman does not. He has a cave. But still, he stays by himself. And you might say, why is solitude so important? Okay, solitude is important because think of solo, meaning by yourself. After doing all of this active listening, what did I read from the board? I wrote it for you. Okay, so solitude means to be by yourself. And you noticed I put here, you take time to study alone to go deep and see language parallels. And some of you go, okay, what do you mean? Well, parallels are where things kind of are in the same way. Yeah, they're parallel. When something's not parallel, one might be here and one goes here, that's not parallel. They'll go on forever this way. In many languages, it doesn't matter what the languages are, there are parallels in repeated patterns or ideas or way of thinking, okay? But you need time to do that by yourself, all right? So intelligent people take time to themselves when they learn new things, to take time and try to understand or digest. They eat, digest and go, okay, now I got an idea. Well, when you language learn, you go to school, right? But you need some time, and you do this. You study alone, and you look at your language, the other language, and sometimes you go, oh, this is similar to my language. and that makes it easier to learn. Yeah. Now this is parallel. It's going to be two parts to this one. But afterwards, as much as solitude, being alone, is important to learning, we need to socialize. Socialize. I thought you said we need to be alone. Okay, intelligent people do this. They take the time away from others to truly go deep and understand something. Yeah. But then they go back into the world to make sure they've got the understanding right by communicating with other people. So they take that alone time to really learn and master something, and then they socialize to make sure they've understood what they had learned. You do that as well. You know you cannot just learn English or any language and just start speaking it. You go, you study, and you know, how do I know if I'm good? Just because I think I'm good, it doesn't make me good. I will actually have to go out and speak to people and see if they understand me, and the reverse, when they speak to me, do I understand them? So the solitude is necessary to go deep, and that's what intelligent people do. But the socialization or being out with people is necessary to test those skills. Okay? You're starting to go, oh, maybe I am smart. I'm like, you are. And before I continue with the lesson, I just want to say this. Even when people make fun of your accent when you learn a new language, be it English, French, Japanese, what have you, you learn two languages, which means you have two dictionaries in your head. Most people have one and have difficulty, but you're carrying two, and if you speak three languages, you've got three. That's a lot of cerebral or brain space that you're occupying and you're using. So don't worry about your accent. Don't worry about, people making fun of this and that. You make mistakes. My friend, you've mastered two, when most people only master one. So now let's get back to the lesson, shall we? All right. Okay. What is number 3? This is a weird word. For some of you, it'll be very weird. Chaos. Now, I talked about solitude. You needed to be by yourself to learn and go deep and then socialize. So why would I have the word chaos here? Because chaos means crazy, no control, madness. But the funny thing about chaos is it forces you to adapt, to be creative, find a solution. Okay? When everything goes exactly as planned, you just kind of go through and you can walk through life, right? You're a kid, you grow up, you go to college, university, get your job, you get old, you get married, then you die. But if you have a little bit of chaos, you get a little excitement because all of a sudden you go to school. Oh no, the school got bombed. Okay, I gotta go to that school. Gotta go to a new country. Oh my gosh, I gotta learn a new language, talk to new people. Oh, all of these things. But it makes you grow as a person. It makes you creative. It teaches you to adapt, yes? Same with language learning. Because when you speak one language and everyone understands you, it's easy. When you move to a new place or you're learning English, for example, all of a sudden it's chaotic because the words you could just traditionally throw out, they don't work. It's a chaotic environment. You have to adapt, and you can't just throw any words. You have to know what words go in what situation. That causes your brain, your gray matter in your brain, to grow. It makes you smarter, right? These are the things that you want to keep in mind when learning language. It's not just you get to communicate more, you're actually making yourself smarter. Okay? Now, where was it? As you work with the two languages, right, you have to find a way to express yourself. So it's not even just learning vocabulary. Many people have said to me when I'm teaching them that in my language, I could express myself, but in this language, I cannot. I go, study harder. See solitude and studying, go back to number 2. Because once they do that, they realize that it's not chaotic. They've just got a whole bunch of new ways of expressing themselves. And it takes a little bit of work and that chaos to create order within that chaos, adapt and be creative so that they can express themselves in new and novel means new ways. And some of the greatest exchanges I've had with students who are learning English is when we'll be speaking, then they'll throw out a word from their own language and say how we don't have it in our language, and then explain it to me. And I'm like, damn, that's cool. Never thought of it that way. But because of the chaos of putting languages together, they can express themselves in new ways, right? And that's you. Now, number 4. What is number 4? We've got chaos. We've got this, and this, we're going to use this word. It's another C word. It's this. Challenge. Okay. I'm going to read this and explain something. Okay. When you learn a new language, many people think it's simple, and this is why they drop out. They drop out of learning a language because they go, it's just learning some words and some sentences. Almost every American and Canadian or Brit can go, dos cervezas, por favor. And they're like, yeah, I speak Spanish. And you don't. You just learn to mimic like a parrot. What? I want to be here. That's all you've done. But to master a language means mastering yourself, and that's a challenge for you to grow and become better. You look here, I said, you are forced to look at the world differently. That's another thing. Languages change how we look at the world. If you learn German, and all the Germans out there are going, yeah, you don't look the same way at the world as a French person does. Perfect example, the idea of time. Tell a German come at 2 o'clock, he's coming at 1:55. Tell a Frenchman, he's like, then next year. You don't know, right? They're not as into time because even in the language, those ideas expressed, right? So you look at the world differently just by learning the language because how it's put together in syntax forces you to, right? But there's also culture connected with those words. For example, in Japanese, there are 3 different ways of speaking. Are you speaking to somebody older? You use one form of speaking. If you're talking to someone of a different gender, you use another form of speaking. That's crazy to me, right? But it's not, world speaking, it's cultural speak. They have it I know they have it in German and other languages where there's a formal way and an informal. We don't have that in English. So if you come from those countries, sometimes you might be a little confused as, well, how do I speak to this man? He's older than me. Like, you call him Bob. But in my country, I'd have to say duh or Z or like call him Bob. And that takes a little getting used to, right? So the other thing I wanted to give you is a little idea, but I want this challenge to give you an idea of the challenge you've put yourself through and what you are bringing to yourself. They've done studies, and what they found is if you get 1,000 people starting something at the beginning of a year, 700 people don't even start. And I know people who started English, said they want to do English with you, and then you say, let's go to English class. They go, another time, not now. Right? So 70% don't even start. Within 2 or 3 weeks, another 200 people drop out. Long story short, by the time you get to like the 3rd year of study, and this is what it takes to learn a language, you don't learn it perfectly in 2 weeks. You got one person, and that one person, if you're watching me right now, is you. So you may not have started with 1,000, but there are 1,000 people around you who wanted to learn a language, and you're still here. This is why I wanted to do this video, to let you know how special you are, and you should keep that commitment going. Keep studying, because it's not just a language you're learning. You're learning about yourself and developing yourself. Now, this would be enough of a message by itself, right? I've given you the 4 things that they find that highly intelligent people do, so you can pat yourself on your back and say, I'm so smart. But that wouldn't be a complete lesson. I want to tell you or give you some ideas that you can do right now to take each idea and put it in your life in a more practical way. So, for example, for listening, one thing you can do in listening is when you're in a conversation with someone, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, try to remember the last 10 things that they said, 10 words that they said. So someone's speaking to you. Think about the last 10 words they said as they're speaking. That's going to force you to pay attention to what they say, producing more active listening, right? Number 2, the socialization and our socialization and solitude. When you are, studying, I'm going to do a video called on the Feynman technique to help you improve your studying. Take some serious time out of your day and literally say, okay, I will take 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day to study my language, because some people study languages and they do what we call I wouldn't say haphazardly, which is they're not consistent, and it's the consistency that gets you to go from A to B or go from good to great. Yeah. So you need to have periods of solitude in your day, in your week, in your month, where you set yourself up that you know at this time of the day you will be studying. That time that you give to yourself will help you get great in your language. And coming back to the socialization, I also want you to take some time for that as well. Right? This plays into the listening. That's now you're seeing how we're bridging them together, right? Take some time and say, every day I will study for 20 minutes by myself to learn my lesson. Then what we want to do is then go back to socialize and say, I will at least do one of two things. Talk to people 3 times a week, yeah? Or well, I'll do that one later, give you a challenge goal, okay? Now we talk about chaos. Talking about chaos is to me to throw yourself out a little bit. I know here I said have a plan, but throw yourself a little bit of disorder. Go to places you wouldn't go. Buy something you wouldn't buy in the English language. So buy a book and read it in English if you don't normally do that. Go see an English movie if you can in your country. Go to the movie theater. And I know that you don't understand the language, but sit there for 2 hours and just go like, whoa, have your mind blown, right? That will cause you, remember we talked about creativity, to see things in a different way. I went to Spain years ago and I learned some Spanish from, I can't remember, Pimsleur or something. And when I went, I had a Spanish friend was there and they had left me to go to the museum. And I'd studied for this thing for at least 6 months or so. And I went up to the woman at the museum and said, in Spanish, stupid on me, that it's been a while since my Spanish isn't very good. I said, listen, I need a guide for the museum. Can you help me? And she was like, yeah, see. And okay, can I get the English? Because I don't speak Spanish. She looked me in the eye and said, your Spanish is good enough. Gave me the Spanish one. And I went through the museum in Spanish. Looked at what it was written, asked people things in Spanish, and I surprised myself. But it was chaotic for me because I didn't set myself up for that. Now, in this way, chaos will look like a challenge. But in the challenge, I want you to set goals for yourself. I was going to say it up here, but I wanted to bring it down here. How would we do that? Well, you could do something like your challenge is to go to a movie, and that would be introducing chaos with challenge, working it together, right? In the case I talked about movie, then you'd have to do active listening, right? A little bit of socialization, but solitude if you go by yourself. So we can play these all together, and this is where the intelligence comes through, putting them all together. But I ask you to challenge yourself in different ways. Give yourself a goal. I will, in 30 days, be able to speak a 5-minute conversation with someone in English, okay? Or I will write an essay, a 2-page essay, no, for no one, just for yourself, on a topic in English that I don't know, which means you're going to have to, so you got your challenge aspect, you're going to have to go study, right? Maybe listen to some YouTube things on the subject and then write something out. These are going to push you in different ways to get you to grow. Anyway, listen, I hope you enjoyed this lesson because these are the 4 habits of intelligent people. And you studying a language puts you right with them, right? It takes intelligence, it takes moxie, it takes guts to study a language. It's not easy. And I want you to start using those habits. I've given you some examples on how to do that. Start that now. Anyway, you have a brilliant day. I've enjoyed my time with you today and every video that we talk to each other. I just wanted to give you this to inspire you to continue on your journey. All right? Anyway, James from Ingvid. Go to ingvid.com for other lessons on grammar, speech, listening, reading and writing, essays, whatnot. And I'll see you there. Oh, but before I say that, if you had an adventure like I did at the museum, put it in the comments, okay? Any good story, people, give them a thumbs up and we'll give them 500 points for every good story, okay? And we'll see who's the best. Anyway, have a great day.